All right, so Aisa, no doubt that gambling, sports gambling, is really a hot topic on both sides of the Atlantic. We're waiting to make a decision here in Switzerland, while in the U.S., the Supreme Court made a pretty major one just recently. Why don't you walk us a little bit through that?
Right. So what the Supreme Court did recently was that they overturned a ban on sports betting that essentially banned it in most states except for Vegas, and there were a couple other exceptions. What this now does is it allows states to legalize sports gambling. So essentially where we're at now is that we're waiting for states to see kind of how they want to handle this. New Jersey, which was the basis for this suit that ended up in the Supreme Court, seems like they're kind of raring to go. Even they, though, will take some time. You know, it's not like sports betting is going to be something that New Jersey is rolling out tomorrow. They still need a little time to kind of see how they want to implement this. But ultimately, it's a decision that's going to be made by states on an individual basis. They will have to see how they want to kind of roll this out if they want to. We very well may see some states completely ban sports betting. So now that it's kind of put in their hands, there are some states who may not want to go forward with this, while others may implement it in a way that kind of looks like how state lotteries work, where there's, it'll be heavily taxed. There may be some kind of statewide, for the Super Bowl, things like that. We might see kind of tournaments, so to speak. But it'll essentially be very dependent on states. It will vary unless, a federal law is implemented. But at this point, it looks like states are going to be handling this on an individual basis.
All right, well, regardless of what the states decide moving forward, how they, you said, decide to handle it, I mean, the business implications are enormous. I mean, who will be cashing in on this multi-billion-dollar industry?
The question might very well be who isn't going to be. We've already seen after the Supreme Court decision came down, we saw stock prices for casinos just skyrocket. So they're already benefiting. Sports betting is already legal in Vegas. So essentially, they kind of have the upper hand. They've been doing this for years now. They're kind of the experts in this. So we may see some states turning to see how Vegas is doing this, how they're implementing it. The other sector that could really benefit here are international purveyors of sports betting. So we've got Paddy Power Betfair, which is in talks to acquire one of the biggest daily fantasy sports sites here in the U.S. So that would give them really invaluable access to this new population of potential sports bettors. So internationally, operators who have already been dealing with sports betting, because it is legal in many other countries internationally, they could tap into this. We may see their DraftKings and FanDuel, which are daily fantasy sports sites, have talked about, when I've sat down with the CEO, they've talked about, we are already in the works of how do we implement this? How do we make sure that we are ready to provide sports betting to our fans and subscribers once states kind of decide where they stand on this? So within the tech space, there may be new companies springing up that want to get a piece of this. You have, for college basketball, for example, March Madness is a huge event. And we already have CBS, Yahoo, they already have pools that are generated around those big tournaments. So it's not unlikely to think that the next step would be to implement some sort of sports betting functionality into that. But it seems like, the companies are going to benefit. Casinos have already kind of felt the boon of this. And then the leagues are all trying to, the NBA, the National Football League, Major League Baseball, they're all kind of trying to see how they want to handle this. The NBA has really been kind of on the front end of this, saying that we want it to be regulated. We're okay with sports betting. We just want regulation. So I think that kind of we're in a holding pattern to see how different states implement this and how they handle it. But it certainly seems like the leagues could also stand to benefit from this.
I mean, it sounds like so many people will benefit from it that it begs the question, who won't benefit from it, in the sense of where are the risks of this blow up in the landscape?
Right. One of the entities that is kind of very wary of this new kind of allowance of sports betting is the NCAA, which is the organization that essentially oversees all collegiate sports. They are very anti-sports betting. They were one of the companies or the entities that was suing to keep it from being legalized. They have a lot of trepidation around the fact that, these are college teenagers essentially who are, who could be more susceptible. They don't have the $1 million deals that some of these pro athletes do. And we've had instances before in college athletics where there has been tampering. So they are very hesitant. They, are proceeding with caution. One of the things they did do, they used to have a ban on states that allowed sports betting couldn't host tournaments. They recently overturned that. So it seems like they're trying to adjust to the new status quo. But they definitely have some trepidations about this. And then also consumers, right? I mean, gambling can be an addiction. So I think that's another reason why states are, kind of taking this slow and trying to see how they want to responsibly implement this. Because, for someone who does suffer from this addiction, they could now have very easy access at the touch of, a fingertip on the phone, right? It's so much easier now to be able to bet.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's actually where my mind was also going as you were talking. I was thinking, what about the fans? What about people that do suffer from addiction, compulsive behavior? I mean, this is is this, as some people have said, a new economy built on vice?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm in quite a position to answer that, but I think that it very well could be. I mean, you are essentially allowing people with a vice, and most people have mobile phones, putting something on an app that could be so easily accessible to someone with this addiction. Like if you're an alcoholic, you could stay away from a bar, but most people do have mobile phones, and so it does make it that much more accessible if companies do implement it in some kind of app functionality. But I do think, what we've seen with other, different lotteries that go to different state lotteries that, for example, some of the proceeds, some of the money goes to funding and gambling addiction help. We might see something like that. So if a state adopts a sports betting kind of platform or, has a plan for how they want to legalize sports betting, we might see a portion of whatever taxes and proceeds going to some kind of self-help for people who do suffer from addiction.
We'll have to see then how each of these states resolve the whole issue, and also what we decide here in Switzerland. Thank you so much, Ahiza, for being with us and for your insight.